Happy Monday. Welcome to the news and why it matters. Glenn Beck, what was the top story today?
I'm going to say Andy No.
Okay.
Dr. No.
All right, Stu.
New poll out about the Democrats just since the debate, and there's some big changes in the race.
All right, Jason.
Crazy claims by Ocasio-Cortez. Sounds like a Saturday Night Live.
Chapter 1 million in 2012. All right, obviously a lot to get into. First, we want to thank our sponsor, iTarget Pro. So if you are one who, you have guns, you go to the shooting range all the time, you spend all this money on ammunition, you really need to consider iTarget Pro. Glenn, I know you talk about the importance of dry firing all the time.
Yeah, dry firing and, not just dry firing and using your mouth going pew, 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 pew.
That doesn't count as dry firing.
That doesn't count, no. Just dry firing, it helps you with trigger control, and that's really, really important. But being able to track, just sitting there, when I first got my first guns, the trainer said, now just sit on the couch, make sure it's empty, and then just pull the trigger over and over and over again to get used to it. That's necessary, but this is a way to do it with some accuracy as well. And you just put your device in front of the target, off to the side, and it registers where you're hitting the target. And I think it's fantastic. It's helped my shot improve a great deal.
And it pays for itself when you think about range fees and ammunition costs. It's going to pay for itself really quickly, probably in like one time. So you can go to itargetpro.com, get 10% off right now plus free shipping with promo code NEWS. That is itargetpro.com. Glenn, Andy No.
Andy No. It's interesting how this is being ignored by the press. And how it is being spun when it is in the press. It's always a right-wing activist, that was looking for trouble, et cetera, et cetera. Here's a guy who is a reporter, and he went to Portland, and he took his video camera with him, and he just started filming the crowd. He filmed, and he noticed after a while that he was starting to be followed and then surrounded. And he went to the police, walked over to the police and said, see these guys walking away from me? They're trying to hassle me and shut down my movements and make sure that I don't go where they don't want me to go. Police did nothing. Then about an hour later, he's milkshaked and he's beaten with a wooden club. I can't say within an inch of his life, but he was bleeding when he got up. And they brought him to the hospital, and he is still in the hospital today. Meanwhile, people are saying, "Oh well, he deserved it," or they have a right to beat people in the streets. The police didn't want to arrest. Andy went to the police and said, "Hey, I'm being harassed. I'm being followed. Can you please help me?" They said, what are we going to do? We're not going to do anything. Basically, beat it, kid. Now, the police, I hope that that Andy sues the city, not necessarily the police, but the city.
Yeah, there's something weird with this mayor, this Portland mayor. I don't want to blame the police in this because I think that they're just doing basically what they're told.
Yeah.
I think they're against a rock and a hard place on this. I really do. This was, I would say, Glenn, that he was beaten within an inch of his life. He was treated for a brain bleed.
Yeah.
And if you follow, some sports, especially boxing, this can be fatal. He could have lost his life to this. And this is another thing. This was premeditated. This was absolutely premeditated on Antifa's part. He said, Andy No tweeted a day before this happened. He said that I'm getting worried about the protest going on tomorrow. They've threatened me personally. He called the shot here. But regardless of that, he still showed up. The guy's incredibly courageous. He's been all over Antifa in Portland for a long time now. They know him. They do not like him, obviously. This was absolutely set up, I believe. So I think it goes far beyond just, oops, this was a scuffle at one of these things.
And Glenn, for those of those viewers out there who don't know of the term milkshake, because it's kind of a new thing, it's where they throw something on you.
They throw a milkshake on you.
Well, right, but that's not what this was.
Right. Well, we don't know for sure, but the word is that it had part of some sort of quickcrete.
Quick drying, quick drying cement.
Cement. So that's what he says went into his eyes. He thought he was sprayed, but he was only sprayed with silly string, and at the same time, been thrown the book that. I'm sorry, I lost my train of my thought.
But the quickcrete thing, that's a big deal.
yeah.
Yes.
That is a big deal.
Yeah.
So if it was just, let's say they poured it in there, right there, if anyone that's used quickcrete, Glenn, might have used it at the ranch, it's a chemical reaction that makes that thing happen. So it starts to burn. So if that hits your skin, you're basically being hit with some kind of chemical weapon, like a crude chemical weapon. It's going to burn. It's going to leave like probably blisters on your hands. It says right there on the bag, stay away from this thing with bare skin. But then later on, if it actually hardens, then they're throwing rocks.
Yeah. Let's go ahead. I think we have a clip of that. Let's watch that, and then Stu, I want to bring you into the conversation.
Yo!
Look at this. So he went to the police several times before this, and they did nothing. And then you'll see later he goes to the police, says, "I've been robbed. My camera's been taken. My wallet's been taken. Where were you guys? Where were you?" And they were nowhere to be found.
Yeah, Stu.
And what you're seeing here, if you want to put it in sort of the terms that the left uses, is a bunch of white people beating up on a gay son of Vietnamese immigrants. That is not something that the press is supposed to love. I have seen some in the press, to their credit, actually be critical of this, even on things like CNN. I mean, so that shows how bad it really was. But I mean, you give them credit when they actually call it out. But a lot of people you see on Twitter justifying this as essentially a business plan, right? Like, I mean, here's a guy who comes out and goes to these rallies. He gets the crap beat out of him, and it improves his business. Pretty cynical look, and certainly not one that I would accept. People being critical of left-wing journalists who went and, I mean, we saw the Vice people, right, went to the famous Charlottesville rally. If they had the crap kicked out of them while they were there, would we be defending the protesters? Of course not. Not that the people at Charlottesville have anything to do with the sort of conservatism we advocate here. But it's just like that disconnect is shocking. And the mayor, I mean, who is blatantly left-wing, is also the one who named the police chief. I think the individual officers can be pretty much excused from a lot of this, but there's something really bad in Portland right now, and they've taken this sort of crazy campus-based ideology and enacted it in a city, and this is what happens when you do.
Did you see all the red shirts there with the DSA logo?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised to find if some of this stuff is funded by Russia. I mean, it's really, truly remarkable what's happening, and the city is not responding. And what are you going to have in the end? What's going to happen to Portland in the end?
One of the heads of DSA was tweeting defenses for Antifa, doing that.
No, they were the organizer of this event.
And they said they were saying, No was just getting in their faces, and he wouldn't leave, and he just wouldn't leave, as if that was even if so.
You own the
Public
park?
street.
And is that a defense for giving him a brain hemorrhage?
Yeah.
No.
And
what about the old guy that got a crowbar to his head?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not even talking about that. When will the media finally recognize they're on the side of death?
I do find it interesting. President Trump will, say something or take away credentials from, a certain CNN reporter, and the media goes crazy. Yet, the media and the left goes crazy. Yet, crickets from the mainstream media on this, but also the Democratic presidential candidates. I mean, I think as of this taping, I think I had only seen Andrew Yang was the only one who finally came out and said this is not acceptable for journalists to be treated that way.
Yeah. That's not a surprise. It would be him too. I mean, but I mean, the one that popped in my head, and that's a great example too. But the one that popped in my head was Covington. Remember, because the kid stood there in the face of this Indian guy for like 30 seconds, and like that was like a major national story for like 2 weeks. This is a 1,000 times worse than this.
Oh, yeah.
And no one seems to care. It's like we found out who like every person's name was who went to the stupid Charlottesville rally. They were getting guys fired from their jobs serving hot dogs at hot dog stands halfway across the country. How are these people constantly going out there beating the crap out of people and no one seems to know who they are?
Yeah,
I mean, they arrested 3 people. 2 of them were women. None of them were the ones that were actually doing that.
The attention is ridiculous. I did hear, was it Stelter actually said something condemning it, which I was very surprised. But as far as you're concerned with national attention, oh my gosh, like Jesse Smollett, Covington, if there's a red MAGA hat mentioned, even not even seen, but just mentioned, they go absolutely insane. But we had a gay minority beaten and given a brain hemorrhage during Pride Month. A gay man was assaulted and beaten to the inch of his life in Pride Month, and hardly a whisper. That's insane.
Yeah. Stu, I want to move on to the new poll.
Yes. So we all watched the debates last week, unfortunately. And what did we learn? I mean, it's kind of interesting in that debates typically don't make that big of a difference. Okay. We romanticize these sort of debate moments because we can all remember where we were and we remember what it felt like. And, it's like almost like watching a big sporting event, right? Like a big play happens and you remember that play.
I mean, it's not always like that. It is this year for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but if you go back to let's say debate number 1, I watched it with this man right here at his house between Romney and Obama. And I just remember being like, this is the most amazing. I mean, Romney just cleaned house that night and destroyed him. Yeah. And I don't know if anyone remembers President Romney, but it wasn't a very long administration.
Well, it's because the next one he came in and was like, oh,
yes.
I agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. That was the next 2, really. Yeah. But that first one was a big deal. I mean, obviously you can go back and you can find those moments in one-on-one debates often. Very rare to find them in debates where you're talking about 10 people. I mean, it's hard to break through there. We saw Carly Fiorina have one good one in 2016 when she went from basically nothing to 6 or 7% and made a little bit of she had a little bit of a run there. And we kind of compared that to Kamala Harris, which I said last week, which I think was probably the best large debate format performance of a candidate that I've ever seen. I mean, it was that good. And so far, the polls are reflecting it. This is now the second poll that has come out that has showed Kamala Harris basically doubling her percentage of Democratic voters after this debate moment. The new CNN poll probably is most notable, though, for Joe Biden crashing to earth, which is just not. He went from 32 to 22 in this most recent poll. Kamala Harris from 8 to 17. So you see that now she's closed this gap to about 5 points. Elizabeth Warren has also gone up from 7 to 15. So now you kind of have a 3-way race there, and then Bernie Sanders now in 4th, which is.
I don't think Bernie Sanders. Yeah, Bernie Sanders is. I mean, he is Scuttle from The Little Mermaid. He is. He is. I mean, look at him.
Reference well enough.
Scuttle was played by Buddy Hackett, remember? And he took the fork and he put it up in his hair. And he's like, this is a dingle hopper. And that's what you use it for. And you're like, when you listen to him, it's like he's had a fork in his hair. And he's like, and we're going to fix this by giving everybody dingle hoppers.
Yeah. He did say the word dinglehoppers in the debate at least 3 or 4 times.
I think that was a word that you would use when he was, 10.
And I feel like he's a one-trick pony, and people have seen it, right? Like where Harris is providing something. I think even Warren at some level is providing something a little bit different. But I just feel like people have seen this show already. It's like it's like House of Cards season 7.
So what's disturbing about this, though, is that shows that the Bernie supporters, because I didn't think he would get any higher than 18, but I didn't think he'd get any lower than 18. I thought Bernie supporters were Bernie supporters. If Bernie supporters start to back somebody else, that's a big deal because Kamala Harris can put together a coalition of people, and if it includes the Bernie Sanders people, Trump may be done.
It's yet to, this definitely helped Kamala Harris in the Democratic debate. We don't know if this is something that's going to be effective to the general election.
And we don't know where Bernie's numbers went. We, as conservatives, you want the Bernie people sitting this out. If the Bernie people sit this out, Trump will probably win. But if the Bernie people, unlike what they did with Hillary Clinton, if they say, you know what, I'm going to go with the Democratic nominee, and they get behind them, Trump's going to really have a hard time. He's going to need every other person. He's going to need every independent to be able to do that. You need the Bernie people to sit out.
And I don't think it's a surprise at all, but I mean, I do think that it also shows that, the people who early on said that, oh yeah, I'll vote for Biden, it was more of the name recognition and not necessarily they're really strong supporters of Joe Biden.
Yeah, and I think they want someone who's going to beat Trump, right? Number one, and they think that Biden's the person who's going to be able to do that. And he did not show he didn't look like you'd be confident he would actually win in that debate.
He looked old.
Yes.
He looked very old.
And look, he's still winning. He can turn this around. He just can't have performances like this regularly. He can deal with one of them and still win this nomination, but he can't continue to do this. If he keeps looking like this, keeps having these moments, it's going to start feeding on each other, and he's going to be done. Just a couple of other quick, interesting notes. There are, there's kind of this top tier here of the top four. We have Biden, Harris, Warren, Sanders, all between 14 and 22%. Then you've got Buttigieg, who's actually down to 4% from 5% last time.
And he didn't have a terrible showing
I would
either.
say he had one of the better showing. He wasn't dynamic, but he held his own. He was fine.
It
It wasn't
okay.
that. It was the trouble in Gary, Indiana, wherever he's from.
I mean, he cannot get an African American to vote for him. Legitimately 0%. Every poll, when they break it down in demographics, they do not like him, which is interesting because it was one of Obama's kind of chosen guys. I mean, Buttigieg was one of these guys. Obama was on that train very early. He hasn't endorsed him in this race, of course, but he was talking about him before anybody knew who he was, which is kind of the reason he ran. Other people in that kind of next tier were Booker and O'Rourke at 3%, Klobuchar at 2%, and then you've got Castro, de Blasio, Gabbard, Yang at 1%, everyone else at 0%. So, I mean, this is it is a race really of 4 people right now. These things can obviously change quickly, but I mean, Harris did legitimately do damage. Warren has had a good run and held her own in that debate. She's still fine. Sanders is holding on to most of his support. But, the Biden thing is changing. And
You're going to have a female candidate.
I mean, remember this
presidential candidate going against him.
You remember this whole narrative?
You think?
I do.
I mean, they tried this last time. If it's Hillary, it didn't work, right? I think if it's Warren, it may not work.
But if it's Kamala, it might work.
Yeah, and if you remember too, remember the big thing where they were saying all these candidates, and who is at the top? These white men. Well, now 2 of the 3 to the top are women. Mm-hmm. That narrative's completely gone. I haven't heard them reverse this. It's so amazing. These big identity politics stories last until they don't last. And as soon as they're gone, no one says, gosh, we were wrong, I guess. These people weren't all just picking them because they're white men. The whole time we were completely wrong. That story never happens, but here it is applied again.
Yeah. All right, back in a minute.
But it was the Democrats. They were never really picking white men, even though they were picking white men.
It was really the Republicans' fault.
All right, before we get back into the conversation, I want to thank our sponsor, Cruise Through History. So, Glenn, you guys, again, I still haven't gotten my invitation.
Oh, man,
I check my mail every day.
I asked you a second time to put that in the mail.
I listed it online.
Okay, all right.
You just have to go to Cruise. You have to go to comesailaway.com. It's right there.
No, my invitation.
You just got to put your name in, and then it becomes your invitation when you pay for it.
Really? That's what it is. What was that last part?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay. So anyway, Come Sail Away. It is a cruise for history. It is really going to be fun. I am so excited. And I was listening to Rabbi Lapin, his podcast on Blaze podcast, just this weekend. He was talking about it, and the way he tells history of Israel is amazing. You are going to learn things that you've never even heard. And we're going to take you through commerce. We're going to go through in Venice and the Enlightenment and the Dark Ages, the end of the Dark Ages. We're going to take you to the home of a republic and democracy, Athens. And then we're going to Israel. And we're also going to stop where Daenerys Targaryen also burned down, but I hear they've rebuilt it.
So you can go to comesailaway.com, which apparently I will also have to go there as well because I am.
Send her an invitation on email, will you? Will you try to do that today? Yeah, with the link.
I'll
have
that.
that. Yeah.
Comesailaway.com.
Thank you.
Okay.
I look forward to that email.
I'm not sending it to Jason.
Just me. Okay, well, now I feel special.
What if you guys need writing and research done while this is going on? How's it going to get done?
We'll have somebody, there'll be 3,000 people that watch this show, listen to the radio show, like-minded. Bill O'Reilly will be there. We got that covered.
All right, Jason, your top story.
AOC is on a mission to to frame whether it's ICE or whether it's the Border Patrol in general as Gestapo, basically. Concentration camp, she's been beating that over the head. Anything else to make it look like they're the Gestapo.
Did you hear the 80-year-old or 90-year-old man who invited her down to the board?
Yes.
Did you hear what he said this
great.
weekend?
Yeah.
Yes.
He wanted somebody to give her a doctorate in stupidity. She deserves it.
Yes, she does.
Harvard might deliver that to her after today, because the madness has gone even further. So she was going down with a few other members of Congress. They were going to tour some of these Border Patrol facilities and these camps that she has now dubbed. And not too long after she got out of the first one, she fires off this tweet. And it says, "Just left the first facility. I see why officers were being so I see why CBP officers were being so physically and sexually threatening towards me."
Always the victim.
So
always.
the first claim there is that they were physically and sexually threatening her. That in itself is pretty dang huge.
That should stop the presses, tell us exactly what happened.
Right.
Let's go. You point them out.
Who was it?
There's cameras
Was it?
There's
Yep.
cameras there. Let's see it.
Yep.
That should not be. If I'm Donald Trump, I'm the president, I call her immediately. I take her seriously. Women need to be taken seriously. So we're going to take you seriously. I want you to identify what time, what it was.
What they
I'm
look like.
sending the FBI over. We're going to take those officers down.
Wouldn't you get badge numbers? That's the first thing you would do. If that really did happen, you would get badge numbers
There
and
were
names.
cameras everywhere.
Everywhere.
So anyway, so that right there. Then she goes on. Officers were keeping women in cells with no water and had told them to drink out of the toilets. This was them on their good behavior in front of members of Congress. This is absolutely ludicrous.
And also, where's she getting that information from? Like, obviously, they didn't say that.
She was
She's not
there.
saying- she's not saying that in front of her, they said, "Drink out of the toilet, woman." That she's saying that actually
I
happened.
mean, you're saying she was there, but she did word that very interestingly.
She said this was them on their good behavior. She's implying that's the way they were doing it while she was there.
Right, she is implying it, but she didn't specifically say, "I saw them do it."
So she
Right.
she
But
clarifies in another tweet. She follows up and then she says that she had to force her way into a cell. She forced her way into a cell, and a woman there personally told her that that's what they were doing.
So
Definitely take her seriously.
Yeah, the story is already kind of fuzzy because there's two different kind of accounts going on this. Now, I mean, just absolutely ludicrous to think that. Just say if a congressperson's coming down to your government, whatever building, you're on your best behavior, right? You are not going to threaten her in any way, especially
You're
not
doomed.
sexually.
Yeah.
You're doomed. And what is she saying? I'm so hot.
Right.
They've got these women in cages, but I'm so hot. They need me too. That's ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous. And then also, I mean, even if you did force some people to drink out of toilets, even though that's ludicrous itself.
Say this. I could see somebody who is being a real pain in the ass and demanding and never we're not going to eat this slop and we're not going to do this. I could see a bad agent on a bad day saying, you know what?
not serious.
You want water? Drink
Right.
it out of the toilet. Not serious,
Yeah.
just I've had enough.
Right.
So you could see that happening, and it shouldn't happen, but you could see that happening. For officers to be serious, they're her charge of saying that officers are there, telling them to drink out of the toilets, then again, we need an investigation. The president should send the FBI down there right now with her to identify who said that.
Yeah. Jason, I'm gonna have to leave everyone on a cliffhanger.
Oh, the conspiracy
The rest
goes
of your-
deeper. It
Oh,
goes deeper.
everyone, put on your tinfoil hats.
Stick
and
around,
wait for
guys. Stick
Jason.
around.
All right, back in a minute.
Well, what's the conspiracy?
I think that's what he's saying. Stick around.
Glenn, how was the museum this weekend?
It was unbelievable. People in tears. People actually, we took a survey. People said they went through all emotions and they left joyful and hopeful. It was really great. Join us. This is all about freedom. There's no better place to be than here with us and me personally on July 4th. July 4, 5, 6, and 7. It's our Mercury Studios experience. Get your tickets at mercury1.org. Mercury1.org.
I thought he said there's no better place to be than with him.
Right?
Oh, we did.
Right. 'Cause I've got AOC in a cage.